Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I am here for an important episode of our exclusive Quora stuff, and I'm doing more of this because I want to talk more to the Islamic or Muslim community. I don't know if I should call us Islamic per se, but yeah, I'm really into semantics. Anyway, I want to basically talk about where we're going with the show and then have a very, very important talk with you. This is a very impromptu video. Just got back from working at my other job. I'm here in the back room of my own studio where the magic happens with answering anti-Islam. I'm also working on an Islamic music album that will be coming out soon. There's stuff in the works. So today, I really want us all to think about 9/11, of course, because it is the anniversary. Now, there's, I guess, a few videos of me talking about this. It is my custom to do a video on 9/11 every year. And this year, I'm going to do more of the same. Except this time, it's going to be more abbreviated. In other videos, I've talked about where I was and all this other stuff, but today I want to talk about purely Islamic law and how that pertains to not just the actions of who was it, of Al-Qaeda, but also the actions of Hamas, Hezbollah, name a terrorist, and these rules are a problem for them. So in Islamic law, we have rules for warfare. In the Holy Quran, it says that you essentially have to negotiate with your enemy first. So the first thing you do is you try and say, hey, you know what, just pay us a tax. Oh no, I'm sorry. The first thing you do is you invite them to Islam. And then the second thing you do is you say, okay, all right, whatever. You don't want to come to Islam? Pay us a tax. We'll leave you alone. Okay? And then after that, you go to war. So just judging by that, which is in the Quran, it is explicitly in the Holy Quran. We can't talk about interpretation because there is none. It literally says that. Judging by that, and there are nuances on how you may want to apply these particular rules. But judging by that, essentially you could say that all terrorism is a problem, but obviously Osama bin Laden did not pen a letter inviting all of the United States to Islam. He also did not pen a letter saying, you gotta pay taxes to us, the Al-Qaeda caliphate. I don't know. They're not even a caliphate, but you know what I mean? I'm trying to keep it in context, but I can't because it's terrorism. Anyway, yeah. Nobody follows those rules. And it is my own personal belief that anytime you want to go to battle with someone, so let's say I go to battle with someone and I've exhausted those possibilities and then I lose. Well, I have to start the process all over again. I need to invite them to Islam, and then I need to invite them to pay a tax. And then if they're not going to pay the tax, then I can attack them again. Hamas never does this, and that is also a problem. So that's just, that's just that. And this doesn't involve even morality. It doesn't involve musing. It's just what it says in the Holy Quran. Okay? So that's an easy way to say terrorism is nonsense. There's also observation. And anti-Islamics typically interpret whatever they see on the television as observation of Islam, especially here in the West. And that is a huge problem. Because when we talk about radicals, when we talk about Islamists, they are what we call unorthodox. And orthodoxy, with a small o, orthodoxy means just the most common way a religion is practiced. So when we speak on Christianity, for example, the Trinity is orthodox. Because pretty much I know there are Universalist Christians, and there's all these offshoots. But mainstream Protestantism, Lutheranism, Catholicism, all Methodism, all of the main branches of Christianity believe in the concept called the Trinity. So that is orthodoxy. The Trinity is orthodoxy because it is the most, it is a most popular practiced belief, put it that way, right? Currently, at this time. When Christianity was first founded by Jesus, alayhi salam, the Trinity didn't exist. The concept didn't exist. So that was not orthodoxy. It in the state of a previous orthodoxy, if we're talking today about an orthodoxy of the past, we call that proto-orthodoxy. So I often argue that Islam is similar to Christian proto-orthodoxy. So we know that there are not hundreds of thousands of Muslims blowing themselves up. There are not hundreds of thousands of Muslims murdering Israeli citizens. There are not hundreds of thousands of Muslims knocking planes into buildings. So we can decidedly say that terrorism is not an orthodox practice by simple observation. The media, incidentally, is something that I want to get into with the next episode of Season 2 of Answering Anti-Islam, but I think that, especially in the West, this is the biggest problem, is the media. And remember, they're just trying to sell commercial space. The West knows absolutely nothing about Islam. I mean, my own journey from Christianity to Islam was filled with research. And I just don't think that the average American, let alone Westerner, is going to actually do that research. Maybe you have more hope in more tolerant countries like Holland or something. Maybe they will do the research. But here in the United States, nobody cares. Let's see. Other reasons why terrorism is not orthodox. Well, let's talk about combatants. Let's talk about when it is lawful to kill someone and when it is not. So, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I believe I've only read one hadith, but I'm sure there are at least 2 or 3 on this. In a hadith, which is basically a narration of something that Muhammad did in this case, he sentenced a rapist to be stoned to death. And I have no problem with that. Yeah. So we derive in Islamic law that because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that and prescribed that punishment for rape, which is stoning to death, then we use that in Islamic law. Pretty simple. So one thing that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, been a long day, folks. He said, "He who commits suicide by throttling shall throttle himself forever in the hellfire." And then he said, in the same hadith, it says, "And he who commits suicide by stabbing will stab himself forever in the hellfire." So I feel that here in this hadith, we're given not just these 2 possibilities, but it's illustrated with more than one possibility of suicide to show you that all suicide is forbidden. And that is an argument against suicide bombing. Now, the whole martyrdom concept is basically unique to the 20th century in unorthodoxy. It all stems from Salafism, which is basically an anti-colonial, political, pseudo-Islamic stance. Originally, Salafism did not employ terrorism. It was just merely an anti-colonial, political, I guess you could say, Islamist movement. But it spawned into what is today the crazy movement, you know? So, what is a combatant? When can you kill in Islam, as I was saying? You can kill in Islam as a punishment for a crime, as rape, or you can also kill in legitimate battle. Okay, so what's legitimate battle? Well, legitimate battle involves legitimate combatants. What's a legitimate combatant? Somebody who is fighting you. Okay, they don't need to have a weapon. They can just be punching you, whatever. They could be, waving a stick at you. I guess a stick is a weapon, but you get the idea. These are essentially what we call rules of engagement in the West, and especially in military speak. And essentially, that's what I'm talking about, are rules of engagement for Muslims. We cannot kill civilians. We cannot attack civilians. Okay? We also, I mean, any non-combatant is off the table. And if you go in and, like you don't blow yourself up, you don't commit suicide, but you go on like a shooting rampage or something of people who are not combatants, that's a problem. But if there's a military outpost and they are occupying Islamic territory, Muslim territory, whatever you want to call it, you can go and attack them because they're uniformed military. You could also go and attack their supporting forces that may not be uniformed military, but the biggest thing is to attack actual combatants. Now, the debate actually begins not with, the Salafism kind of thing. The debate begins when we say, well, what about supporting forces, right? I mean, we obviously shouldn't attack an enemy's hospital. Probably wouldn't want to do that because our own guys are going to be in there too, right? I would hope anyway. We're also not going to want to attack a village per se, or at least the people in said village, because they would be innocents as well. And when we speak of jihad, of the sword anyway, it is incredibly important. If this person is going to be called, a mujahid, then he has to obey the Islamic rules of war. If you do not obey the Islamic rules of war, you are not in jihad. Okay? So let's take a look at what they did on 9/11. They didn't speak on any of those things in the Quran. They didn't send the United States a letter asking them to convert. They didn't send the United States a letter asking them to pay a tax. They just attacked. Who did they attack? They attacked civilians. In fact, a few Muslims even died that day. One was a pregnant Muslim. May God grant her paradise. And their actions were not Islamic at all, in any sense of the word. So that is the lowdown on terrorism. And here is the next part about specifically the 9/11 attacks. I cannot remember the guy's name, but there was an inquiry about the 9/11 attacks, and one of the reasons for it, claimed anyway, was that the United States population paid essentially taxes that funded Israel. And we funded Israel in the sense that we send them military weapons to fight Muslims, right? This is in the eyes of Al-Qaeda, right? So bear that in mind. So their argument was that all, sorry, I can't say it without laughing, but that all American citizens are legal combatants because their money goes to a cause of war. That doesn't make any sense. Mostly because a legal combatant in Islamic military jurisprudence is someone who is part of a de facto army, whether it be a national army or just a partisan army. That is a combatant. A combatant is not a taxpayer because a taxpayer is just a civilian. So that is an absolutely terrible argument. And then, of course, we could say, well, what if there was this caliphate that taxed dhimmi, and whatever, and then some, I don't know, somebody came along and attacked the caliphate and attacked the dhimmi, who are non-Muslims living in a caliphate, by the way, because their money supported what the caliphate was doing. That is wrong too. Yeah. So that's the thing is, when you look at these laws, when you look at these rules, you should be able to apply them equally. And in the philosophy of these terrorists, you cannot. So lastly, I want to just say thank you all for watching this stuff. Thank you all for reading what I write. I've been sharing a lot more. I've been sticking up for Orthodox Islam, and I'm trying to at least get some of the anti-Islamics to realize how little they know about Islam. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the next exclusive Quora episode.